This lesson is over the quadratic formula and using it to solve quadratic equations. So our objective today is I can find the zeros through the quadratic formula. Just a reminder to please make sure you're reading the daily announcement, checking your Canvas messages, and completing any work sessions you have today or that you've missed over the last few days. So let's review really quick what solving quadratic equations means. Solving means to find the x-intercepts of an equation, and you can have 0 x-intercepts, 1 x-intercept, or 2 x-intercepts. Now, we've looked at all 5 of these after today. We have solved by factoring, by square roots, by completing the square, and by graphing. And today, our major focus is going to be over the quadratic formula, which a lot of people think is the most difficult way to solve a quadratic, but I often use this when I can't factor something. I just jump right to the quadratic formula. I just find it a little bit easier to use. It's a tough formula, but once you get the hang of it, and I've got a little way to help you memorize it, once you get the hang of it, you'll see that it's really not so bad. All right, so here it is. Use your note-taking guide to fill in the pieces here. This is the quadratic formula. It's x is equal to negative b plus or minus. That's what that symbol means, plus or minus. And think about this. We always have a positive and a negative square root, so that plus or minus is taking that into account. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2 times a. And basically what you do is you substitute your a, b, and c values into the equation, and then you solve to figure out your zeros. Now, again, this formula looks really overwhelming, and I totally understand that, but I have a song to help you remember it. And, you might as well sing it along with me once you know it, because when you get back to school, I might have to ask, see who knows it. All right, so let's take a look at our formula. The song goes to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel, so it's kind of like a childhood song. Maybe you sang it when you were a kid, or you've heard of it before, but it goes like this. It's x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It's pretty cool. I know you're probably thinking, how cool is Miss Madrinsky right now? But I mean, y'all are going to be just as cool in a few minutes here. So let's try 2 examples. Let's go ahead and get started. If you notice off to the side, I have the step-by-step guide of what we're going to be doing if you want to follow along with that, or you can follow along with what I'm saying here. So our first step is we're going to identify our a, b, and c values. So in this case, our a value is a 1, our b value is a 4, and our c value is negative 21. The equation is already equal to 0, so that's good because remember we factor, we have to make sure our equation is equal to 0 unless we're solving by square roots or completing the square. So, do you remember the formula? Let's write it out, see if we actually do. We can sing the song. It's x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Awesome. Now let's fill in the pieces that we know. So we've got x is equal to negative b. Our b is 4. Okay. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. So a is 1, c is negative 21 in that case. So notice how I put those in parentheses just to make sure that I know that they're separated values, and if I were to type them into a calculator, the calculator does read it correctly. And then all that is divided by 2 times a, and in our case, a is a 1. Perfect. Okay, again, looks really intimidating, but just let's take our time solving this question. We're just going to simplify each piece, and we'll realize again that it's not so bad. So here we have x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root. We've got 4 squared, 4 times 4, that's 16, minus 4 times 1 times negative 21, all divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. All right. If you want to combine more of these steps into one, that's totally fine too as we go through. So I'm just trying to simplify it as much as possible. Next up, we've got -4 plus or minus 16. And then with this part of the problem, we're going to multiply 4 times 1 times -21, which is -84. But we're subtracting a -84, so it ends up being plus 84 in that case, divided by 2. From here, let's figure out what our 16 plus 84 is. That gives us a 100 divided by 2. So here's where we're going to separate the problem into 2 different parts, okay? We're ready to do so. We simplified what's underneath the parenthesis or underneath the square root symbol first, and now we're ready to write our 2 possible roots out. And this is kind of why, solutions can also be called roots. We're going to have x equals -4 plus the square root of 100 divided by 2, or we're going to have x equals -4 minus the square root of 100 divided by 2. Well, the square root of 100, we're going to have -4 plus 10 over 2. Or on this side, we're going to have -4 minus 10 over 2. -4 plus 10 gives us 6 over 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So one of our x-intercepts is 3, 0. Over on this side, we have -4 minus 10, which gives us -14 divided by 2. -14 divided by 2 is -7. So our other x-intercept is -7, 0. So again, it looks like a lot of steps, but as we start to combine some of the pieces to make it a little simpler and faster, we'll realize it's really not so bad. So take your time with it. Use a calculator with it. Don't do anything necessarily on your own if you don't feel comfortable with it. Let's move to our next one. I think we've got this. Let's try one more. So again, I've got my directions here on the side if you'd like to follow along with those. First step is we're going to label our A, B, and C. Our A is 2, B is -3, and C is -5. Let's remember our formula. Let's go to our song to figure that out, which, by the way, part of your work session today, if you want, instead of doing problems, is you could rewrite the song and perform it on TikTok. So we've got x is equal to -b. Well, b in this case is a -3. So notice how I put that in parentheses to show it's a -b, even though b is already negative. So x is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared, -3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is -5, all over 2 times a, which is 2. All right, let's do some simplifying. Here we've got a -3 is +3, plus or minus the square root. -3 squared is 9, minus, we've got 4 times 2, which is 8, times -5 is going to give us -40, but we're adding we're subtracting a -40, so it's basically the same thing as adding 40, all divided by 4, 2 times 2. From here, let's go ahead and add up what's underneath our square root. 40 plus 9 gives us 49 over 4. From here, we're going to separate into 2 separate roots. We're going to have x is equal to 3 plus the square root of 49 over 4, or x is equal to 3 minus the square root of 9 over 4. 49, excuse me, not 9. First one, 3 plus square root of 49 is 7 over 4 is one of our answers. 3 plus 7 is 10. 10 over 4, we can actually just leave as 10 over 4 if we want, or you can label it as 2.5. So one of our zeros is 2.5, 0. And here we're going to have 3 minus 7, because that's the square root of 49. 3 minus 7 is -4. Divided by 4 gives us -1. So our other zero is -1, 0. All right. Good. And again, we did that one a lot faster, and we still did the same amount of work. So as you move through this, you might find that quadratic formula is just the method of choice for you to use. So to get some practice with it today, you have 2 options for your work session. The first option is you can do the solving by, that should say quadratic formula. Sorry about that. You can solve by quadratic formula on a Canvas quiz, or you can rewrite the song and make a TikTok video about that song. You can use whichever song you want. It's totally fine as long as you've got the quadratic formula in there in the order that's supposed to be in. So either one, it's completely up to you which one you want to do. If you do the TikTok video, just make sure to download it and either email it to me, or I'm going to try and make a submission box for it on Canvas. Email, Canvas message, or Microsoft Teams meeting me if you need some help today. And I hope you have an awesome day. I miss you all so much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.